All right. So let's now prepare for meditation.
You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. You're a blessing to the world, a blessing to the world.
I am a blessing to the world. Let's breathe into that as we settle into a time of renewal, a time to be alone with ourselves in the universe, a time to relax, to let go of what we've done this morning and the conversations we've had, and breathe into knowing that I am a blessing to the world, that you are a blessing to the world, that we are a blessing to the world. So let's take a deep breath together. And on the exhale, just let the belly drop and the shoulders relax and settle in. Settle into letting go of any tension in the body. Just relaxing into the seat, and let the eyes be at wherever you're comfortable with them being, and allow the hands to be comfortable. And take another deep breath in. And on the exhale, allow the thoughts to slow down a bit. Allow the mind to settle into being rather than doing. And breathe into that. And as thoughts come through, just label them and thank them and let them go. And know that, well, I know that I am claiming my divinity right now, and I invite you to claim yours and to settle into your divinity, to settle into peace and relaxation, to be the peace that you are, that I am, to be the blessing that each of us are. So we breathe in and out and focus on the breath and the blessing and the peace. And we sit in the silence, in the silence. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. Slowly returning to this now moment, beginning to wiggle the toes and the fingers and licking the lips and taking in a breath and exhaling and saying thank you. And gratitude fills us. Thank you for this time, for this space, for this energy, for this renewal, for this refreshment, for world peace. And slowly we open our eyes and say, thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is.
There's a voice that's softly whispering inside my head, telling me I'm gonna be all right. It keeps saying, let yourself be led where you are led. Don't hold back, don't put up a fight. It tells me, trust the wind and breathe the air. There's a place you're meant to be, and you're already there. Open up your heart and let life in. You know that you can always trust the wind. When the world starts doing things that I don't understand, and I search my soul to find a reason why, in the dark of night I feel somebody take my hand and tell me you don't even have to try. For you can trust the wind and breathe the air. that there are helping hands around you everywhere. Open up your heart and let life in. You know that you can always trust the wind. Oh, dreams have wings and thoughts take flight. All good things are streaming toward us every day. They hear our prayers, they know the way. I'm going to trust the wind and breathe the air. Let it take me on its wings and carry me somewhere. I'll open up my heart and let life in. You know, wherever breezes blow, wherever winding rivers flow, I'm going where I need to go. I will trust the wind.
David Trolley. Thank you, David Trolley. Thank you. Thank you, David. You ready to trust the wind this morning? Hold on. We're going to talk about loneliness. Trust the wind. Everybody trust the wind. Thank you, David, again. That was beautiful. And Anne, great announcements. And thank you, Don, for being our chaplain today. And Don will be available after a service in a breakout room. And well, I shouldn't say this, but Don's my chaplain right now, and I just love having Don as my chaplain. But anyway, let me get on with my talk this morning. I wanted to tell you a short story about myself to get today going on our talk about loneliness. But I want to go back to, are you trusting the wind? I mean, I don't always trust the wind. My gosh. Well, that's where my story comes up actually, because I've had this ongoing saga I've shared with some of you after being in the hospital for 2 days, a couple of weeks back, at having hypertension. And I'm a terrible patient, really. I being a nurse for 46 years, but I have to admit, I wouldn't want to take care of me. But anyway, so, I'm taking my blood pressure, like 4 to 6 times a day. I know. Yeah. I'm sending emails to the doctor every day sometimes. And the medication is getting changed, but that's okay. But, and then, well, I'm starting to get a little crazy in my head, and I'm talking to all these people. And well, the other morning before I went to the doctor, I ransacked the kitchen, and anything that had any sodium in it, it's no longer in the kitchen. It's gone. The neighbors upstairs got a bag full of goodies, and I hope they enjoy it. And well, I wasn't stopping there, and I was really relishing all the advice from everybody else that has hypertension, and boy, was I building a story up in my mind. And so finally, I go in to have the appointment with my internist. And now I have to be honest with you. I've known this guy, my internist, for, excuse me, about 10 years personally. As a matter of fact, he worked for me when I ran a hospice, and I just love this guy. And I'm so glad he's my doctor now. Excuse me. I'm sorry, talking a bit much here. So, I'm glad he's my physician, and I've got my questions written down, and I'm in there, and I'm going on and on about everything. And he finally looks over at me, and he looks at me, and he takes a breath, and with total sincerity, he had the nerve to say to me, "Richard, are you having a midlife crisis?" I looked at him and laughed, and I thought I'd already had that. And this man then with a straight face, but just a touch of a smirk, had the nerve again to say, "Well, perhaps you're having a second one." Well, perhaps I am having a second one. That was something. Oh, and after that, he said, "And would you do us a favor both?" Because you see, I had brought a bunch of papers with me with all these blood pressures written down. He said, "Would you just take your blood pressure once a day and then give the medicine a chance to work and relax?" Having a midlife crisis? Am I having a midlife crisis? Am I having a midlife crisis? It feels like a midlife crisis. I don't know. I don't want to have a midlife crisis. I can tell you that. I promise you that. That's not something I want. I mean, I thought I had one of those, but then I've been thinking, well, we're living a lot longer, and maybe we get to have two midlife crises. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, midway through the first half, midway through the second half. I don't know, but maybe we get to have another one, and I'm not sure if it's hormonal or not. I can't tell that anymore. No, I didn't mean that, but maybe we are having a second midlife crisis these days. So, well, that was a little unsettling anyway, and it's been on my mind ever since I've been in this office, and I've been feeling a bit of loneliness. Am I having a midlife crisis? I'm the only one having a midlife crisis. I desire not to have a midlife crisis, and I'm not content with this having a midlife crisis. I'm really not content with it. I didn't want to accept that I might be having a midlife crisis, and I thought, why am I the one that gets to have a second midlife crisis? No one else I know is admitted to having a second midlife crisis, and maybe that's just it. Maybe they haven't admitted to it, and well, I was having all those feelings, and then this Saturday, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I decided I needed to take a walk to process this all, to be alone with myself. You know what it is when you want to be alone, right? I mean, not lonely, that's different, right? But alone, I didn't even want to be with the cats. I wanted to be alone and let this process. And of course, now there are times when we are alone and we don't want to be alone, right? There are times when we are alone and we don't want to be alone, and we desire for something different. We desire not to feel that way, not to feel like we don't want to be alone. But I wanted to be alone, like just you and me and well, and the universe, of course, God, source, I just wanted to be alone and process this. So, we have to distinguish the difference between loneliness and alone. And loneliness is said to be a complex and usually unpleasant emotional response to isolation. A complex and usually unpleasant emotional response to isolation. Loneliness typically includes anxious feelings about a lack of connection or communication with other beings. both in the present and extending into the future. As such, loneliness can be felt even when surrounded by other people. That's a whole lot. But we all know that. We felt that difference. We felt that loneliness, that lack of connection between other people, and just couldn't communicate, and you know, and then not only are we in the present moment doing that, but then we're creating stories about the future as well, of course, because we're how we are, and we're predicting that, and that's even worse, you know, and on we go. So, you know, we want to make a distinction between loneliness versus and alone, and I'm okay with being alone. Most of us are okay with being alone, and I'm alone a lot, and so I've become comfortable with my own company, and being alone is not the same as loneliness. Then when my anxiousness and my fear and self-doubt seep into my thinking. When those things begin to happen, it's not alone anymore. We're letting those emotions and those feelings, they come in, and we let them come in, and we focus on them rather than more polar things, softer things, you know, focusing on those self-doubt and anxiousness and fear are, for me, it always comes with a component of worthlessness. You know, I'm not worth it. I did this, I shouldn't have done that, you know, and so there's something else attached to it. And when that happens, Pema Chodron refers to it as hot and pregnant loneliness, pushing me to do something, anything. When it gets that feeling, when it becomes hot like that, you felt it. I have to do something else because I don't want to be there. And then cold loneliness then is one that we should be learning to practice and embrace. So, well, let's talk about, there's a lot to talk about. Oh, I have to make a confession. I should have made it at the beginning of the talk. I know the title of the talk is 6 Kinds of Loneliness, but you're only going to get 3 today, unless you want to be here till tomorrow. I couldn't get them all into one, so I'll come back at another time and do the last 3, okay? But you're only going to get 3 today. But Pema Chodron, in her book, When Things Fall Apart, and Mary's going to put this, how you can get the book in the chat right now, so you can copy the link or get it, you know, when you want to. She tells us to look at 6 kinds of loneliness and practice moving from hot, pregnant loneliness to cool loneliness. And those 6 are less desire. Let's see what kind of cool loneliness we can take from desire with less desire. And then contentment. Think for a moment, most of our loneliness comes from discontent. Avoiding unnecessary activity. This is a great one, and we'll get to these 3 today, and then we'll talk about complete discipline, or are we willing to sit still, just be there alone, to have the discipline to just be there alone, to not run from it. And that well, we'll talk about that, not wandering in the world of desire. So staying there and wandering around in the world of desire, and then not seeking security from one's discursive thoughts. So you see why I couldn't do them all 6 in one day. We'll come back to it. So what's the practice then? Of course, we're going to look for a practice. How do we deal with loneliness? How do we want to move? How can we move from hot loneliness, hot pregnant loneliness? And I love that she calls it that. Pema just puts it out there, because there is that loneliness that just is, it's pregnant. It's pregnant within you. It's just there. And so how do we move it into cool loneliness? How do we sit with it? How do we be with it? And so she suggests that it's very important that we practice moving toward the middle ground, to begin using the middle as a reference point. Not this way or this way, not right or left, wrong or right, not those polarities. Those of you that were in Linda Martellowitz's class, I'm going to jump up, and I'm not sure I am real clear on polarities yet, but to me, those polarities that we always are searching for, that we practice being in the middle, and that's we don't like to be there. But the practice is to get in the middle and sit there and get comfortable in the middle ground, feeling the feelings, labeling them, and then releasing them. And as we do, we begin to move towards the middle point. So feeling the feelings and labeling them, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? We did it just a little bit ago when we were going into meditation. If a thought comes in, let's label it, thank it, and let it go. So when these feelings come in, we learn to label them, but feel them first. I mean, really, let feel them. And that's what we don't want to do. And label them, and then release them. And as we do, we you can feel it. You begin to move towards the middle point. And so Pema says, and I'm quoting her, when we can rest in the middle, we begin to have a non-threatening relationship with loneliness, a relaxing and cooling loneliness that completely turns our usual fearful patterns upside down. That's quite a statement, that when we can begin to have a relationship with loneliness, a non-threatening one, when it's not the enemy anymore, then we can bring a relaxing and cooling loneliness, the polarity, the opposite of it, the feelings there, the not in the middle, but we can bring it in to the middle, and it turns our usual fearful patterns upside down. So the experience of certain feelings can seem particularly pregnant with desire for resolution, loneliness, boredom, anxiety. We desire for that to be resolved, right? We don't want to stay in that state. And so we constantly have a desire to resolve it. And that creates our loneliness, because it doesn't resolve. We're so focused on resolving it, we're getting, when these feelings come up. And so unless we can relax with these feelings when they come up, it's very hard to stay in the middle when we experience them. So they don't just go up to being hot, but they were at some other point and they started getting hot, and we are at a choice point, of course, as usual, where we might be able to stop them from getting any hotter by cooling them down or bringing them back down to the middle point. So Pema says, we want victory or defeat, praise or blame. We want victory or defeat, praise or blame. There's that polarity again. For example, if somebody abandons us, we don't want to be with that raw discomfort. Instead, we conjure up a familiar identity of ourselves as a hapless victim. Or maybe we avoid the rawness by acting out and righteously telling the person how messed up he or she is. We automatically want to cover over the pain in one way or another, identifying victory or victimhood, identifying with victory or victimhood, instead of being in the middle ground for a while and being in the field. That's my goal. I want to be in the middle ground. What can I do to cool those feelings down, not let them get any higher, so that it's not about, or lower, that it's not about victory or victimhood. It's about the middle point. It's about peace. It's about love. It's about being content with myself. Oh, there's that word content again. So to be without a reference point, which is in the middle point, right? To be without a reference point, because the reference point is going to be on either side of that. Oh, I'm too hungry. I'm not hungry enough. I have lack. I have too much. So the reference point's is in the middle. So we're without a reference point. It's ultimate loneliness, right? I mean, you're alone when you don't have a reference point. But it's also called enlightenment. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's where God is. It's the universe. Is how do we get to source? Now, do we ever? Well, we're not going to go. Let's all raise our hand that are enlightened in the room. And all right, all those that will be enlightened in the next 6 years. But truly, it's the practice to stay present. So in the middle way, there's no reference point. And the mind with no reference point does not resolve itself, it doesn't fixate or grasp. And so your mind is saying, how could we possibly have no reference point? Your humanness is saying, how could we possibly have no reference point? Why? If we had no reference point, it would change a deep-seated habitual response to the world. The way we normally react, it has to be right or wrong. If I can't go to the right or to the left, I will die. When we don't go to the right or the left, we feel like Pema says, let me say it again because it cracks me up. She says, if I can't go to the left or right, I will die. When we don't go to the left or right, we feel like we are in a detox center. We're alone, cold turkey, with all the edginess that we've been trying to avoid by going left or right. The edginess can feel pretty heavy. Trying not to go to the left or right. But it's when we get that hot loneliness, when we go out there, that we feel it. And, she says, however, after going to the left or the right for years and years, yes or no, going to right or wrong, has never really changed anything. Scrambling for security has never brought anything but momentary joy. And then, of course, she brings up meditation, and Pema says, so scrambling for security has never brought anything but momentary joy. It's like changing the position of our legs in meditation. Our legs hurt from sitting cross-legged, so we move them. And then we feel, phew, what a relief. But 2.5 minutes later, we want to move them again. We keep moving around, seeking pleasure, seeking comfort, and the satisfaction that we get is very short-lived. You see how this all fits into loneliness? How we get into it? How our desire, we have desire to not be right or wrong, to not be less or more. And if we can have less desire, why, we can begin to get towards the middle way. So as human beings, not only do we seek resolution, but we also feel that we deserve resolution. Pema says, however, not only do we not deserve resolution, we suffer from resolution. We don't deserve resolution. We deserve something better than that. We deserve our birthright, she says, which is the middle way, an open state of mind that can relax with paradox and ambiguity. an open state of mind that can relax with paradox and ambiguity. To the degree that we've been avoiding uncertainty, we're naturally going to have withdrawal symptoms. Withdrawal from always thinking that there's a problem and that somewhere someone needs to fix it. So let's wind this up, if we can, into the first less desire. Less desire, then, is the willingness to be lonely without resolution. Be lonely without resolution. It's okay not to have resolution. It's okay to not be right or wrong, to be black or white, to be yes or no, to be that, it can be in the middle. When everything in us yearns for something to cheer us up and change our mood, that, for something to cheer us up and change our mood. She says that practicing this kind of loneliness is the way of sowing seeds so that the fundamental restlessness decreases. And after we practice less desire wholeheartedly and consistently, something shifts. We feel less desire in the sense of being less solidly seduced by our very important storylines. Those very important stories that we got going on in there. I get seduced by them. Boy, are you having am I having a second midlife crisis? Am I in a midlife crisis? Well, can I get seduced by that story? Let me tell you, I can run that. But anyway, so even then, if we're in the midst of hot loneliness and it's there, and if we she says 1.6 seconds, we sit with that restlessness. 1.6 seconds, we sit with that restlessness when yesterday we couldn't sit for even one, then that's our journey. That's the journey of the warrior, to be able to sit, to be able to be there, to be able to be comfortable in the midst of that. When I was doing some research for this talk, I came across a blog that someone had written, and I don't know who it was, but he gave this example of desire and the brain and what's going on. So it's the brain and me having a conversations with ourselves. And so the brain says, we're lonely. Me, I know. Brain, let's have a donut. We like donuts. That will make our mood better. Me, I hear us. Are we saying we want a donut? Brain, yes, donuts are yummy. Me, yes, donuts are yummy. Brain, let's go get a donut now. It will cheer us up. Me, we want a donut now? Brain, sigh, we're not getting a donut, are we? Me, because I love us. No? Brain, we're a jerk. Me, sometimes we have to be, to take care of us. That's a boundary. Cool desire, cooling it down, letting it be something else, resolving it, not always going out for the donut or whatever it is. The second kind is contentment, and we talked about that. The second kind of loneliness is contentment. When we have nothing to lose. When we have nothing to lose. We don't have anything to lose, but being programmed in our guts, we feel that we have a lot to lose. When we have nothing to lose, but we're programmed to feel that we have a lot to lose. Now, that's a pretty bold statement. Our feeling that we have a lot to lose is rooted in fear of loneliness, of change, of anything that can't be resolved, of non-existence. And so the hope that we can avoid this feeling and the fear that we can't become our reference point. How do I pull down from this feeling? Well, contentment is a synonym for loneliness, for cold loneliness, settling down with cold loneliness. We give up believing that being able to escape our loneliness is going to bring any lasting happiness or joy or sense of well-being or courage or strength. Pema says, now, usually we have to give this belief up about 1 billion times, again and again, making friends with our jumpiness and dread, doing the same thing 1 billion times with awareness, with being there, using the cool loneliness, stopping that feeling of hot discontent, and using contentment, cool loneliness. I'm content. Something begins to shift, and we can just be lonely with no alternatives, content to be right here with the mood and texture of what's happening. So I'm going to slow down here because we're going to have this talk again, and that's a lot to cover. And I can wrap up avoiding unnecessary activities in the last 3, but just a tidbit. Do you ever, do unnecessary activities to move out of loneliness? Like eating or exercising or sleeping or social media? Is that a replacement for, well, is it a way of keeping ourselves busy so that we don't have to feel any pain? So we'll talk more about that when we talk again, but to close, Pema Chodron says, rather than persecuting yourself or feeling that something terribly wrong is happening, right there in the moment of sadness and longing, could you relax and touch the limitless space of the human heart? Are you willing to practice our birthright, the middle way? She says, so the next time you feel yourself in the midst of hot loneliness, like when the doctor suggests you're having a midlife crisis, practice cooling it down. Practice sitting in the middle, getting comfortable in the middle. Open up your heart and let life in. Trust in the wind. Breathe the air. I'm going where I need to go. I can trust the wind. So let's try to go forward this week, enjoying the words from David Friedman's song, Let's Trust the Wind this week. Have a good week. Thanks for being here this morning with me. I enjoyed talking with you. Thank you.